Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So I'm really excited for today's tutorial because I'm going to be showing you guys how to make rhinestone shirts using your Cricut, but I'm also going to be showing you how you can make your own rhinestone templates right in Cricut Design Space. So no need for fancy softwares, you'll be able to make whatever shirts you want. So to get started, go ahead and open up Cricut Design Space, and you do need to have an idea of what design you're going for. So for me, I'm going to be doing a game day shirt with a rhinestone football. So all I've done here is I've just used Cricut Design Space to type in game and then day. And then I've actually added in a football. It's just an SVG file I created, which I'm going to share with you guys in the member library. So if you want to use the same design, you can grab that football from my member library. If you're not a member yet, just go to my homepage and you can get that password to get into my member library to get all of my free SVG files. So I'm going to leave that link down in the video description for you guys. And you don't even have to have an SVG file for your rhinestone design. You just have to have any kind of picture that you can use as a guide, because at the end of this, I'm actually going to be deleting this football. So it doesn't even have to be a true SVG file. So if you have like a JPEG image that you found that you kind of want to recreate, then you can just upload that. So go ahead and get an idea for your design and make sure that you resize it. This is very important. Before we start on our template, you need to have your template the exact size it's going to be. Once we get started, you're not going to be able to resize this. So I do have everything that I want it to be, kind of like the size. I'm going to kind of use vinyl right here for the game day, and then this is going to be 2 different color rhinestones. When I actually put on the shirt, I'm going to kind of go like this just to make it a little bit fun, but it's going to be a little bit easier to make the template if I have it just kind of flat, so I'm going to leave it that way. So for now, I'm just going to take the game and day, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to unite those. That way when I cut that, it's all going to cut in one piece and I can easily iron it on. And now I'm just going to hide this because I don't need that layer right now. In the football, like I said, it's really important that it's sized properly, so I already have this sized properly. And I am doing kind of a difficult shape because this is going to have 2 different color rhinestones in the design and it's really rounded. This is actually a little more difficult. Like if you're doing some block letters or something where you're just doing an outline or something that's more square-like, it's going to be so much easier because you can just use lines to duplicate, and you'll see what I'm talking about later. But I wanted to do something a little more difficult. That way you guys can see that you can do anything and you can use the same technique. So the next thing you need to know is what size stones you're using. So I'm just going to unhide this right here. It's a little bit small, so let me just zoom in. So I'm actually using the SS10 size. So if you see right here, I'm going to need to use a 0.12 template for all of my little rhinestones. But if you're using a 20, you'll use a 0.21, a 16, a 0.17, or a 6, a 0.102, sorry. And if you're using 2 different size stones, you do need to remember, like if this is going to be one size and then the brown's going to be one size, then make sure you create 2 different templates for each size of those stones. And if you guys ever forget what size template you need, all this information is in my blog post, which I'm linking to as well. So you can always go back there so that you know, or you can take a minute, pause this, and write them all down. So I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of this because I don't actually need that. And like I said, I'm using the 10s. So I'm going to grab my shape tools right here and just add a circle. And so I need this size to be 0.12. And so I just went and changed the width and the height to 0.12. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the inside color. I'm just going to lighten this up a little bit, maybe like a light gray. I'm kind of using like a crystal AB color for this, and then I'm going to use more of a really dark topaz for the football. And I'll leave the links to what I'm using also in the description in case you guys want to get those same rhinestones. So I'm just going to zoom in here. And we are literally just going to fill the football design with a bunch of rhinestones. But I'm going to kind of show you some hacks to make this a lot easier. So right now, I'm not too worried about the distance between them because I can go back and easily make the distance the same. I'm more worried about the placement next to this line. So we're just going to keep adding these. All I'm doing is going in and adding some more circles, following this line right here. Okay, so I've just made a line of these now. I wasn't too worried about the placement because we're going to clean that up now. So I'm selecting everything, except I want to deselect this football. So I'm just going to hold down Shift while I click on that to deselect it. And now we're just going to go to align, and we want to distribute these vertically. And now that's going to give the same amount of space in between those. And you can kind of look at them. I see one that looks a little out of space here. I click off there. Sometimes it's easier to click in the layers, and I'm just going to slide that over, and you can go ahead and do that for any of these that look like they could be out of space. I feel like that one could be slid over, and maybe this one as well. So just cleaning it up a little bit until I like the way it looks. I feel like those are aligned pretty good. So next what I'm going to do is I'm going to select everything again and deselect my football. And I'm going to group these together just to make this easier to work with. And I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this. And we're just going to go ahead and drag this over right next to it. And so we don't want any, if you notice right here, this rhinestone would be cut in half. You can't have any half circles. They all have to be full circles. So I'm going to slide this up a little bit. And obviously because the curvature is being pushed up a little bit, it changes a little bit up here. So I'm really going to align it down at the bottom where I want it. And then I can kind of move these in just a little bit. So now that I have this placed where I like it, I'm going to go ahead and ungroup it. And I'm just going to go down here because we need to get rid of this one, delete that. And then we can just kind of click on each of these layers and slide those in just a little bit, just to make it all look kind of even. And not all will need slid in because eventually they kind of go closer, but so this is just helping so I don't have to sit here and put circle by circle by circle. So like I mentioned, if you're doing something like block letters or something more square, you can just create like a big long line and go ahead, and what you'll do is you'll go to the align. Let me click 2 so you can see what I'm talking about. Once you have a big line, you would just select them all and you would just distribute those, and then you would also center them vertically, and you would have a perfect line of them all centered. And so it makes it really easy to work with. But I want to just kind of show you, don't be scared of doing kind of bigger projects because you can make any type of design work. So now I'm just going to select all of those. I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to deselect everything except those circles so that I can group those. That's just going to make it easier to work with. So now I'm going to go back to this bottom one and duplicate that. And let's drag it over there. And this one, I'll just be getting rid of the top and the bottom so that curvature kind of stays the same because I didn't have to slide it down. I could keep it in the same place and just get rid of some. So I'm not really going to have to modify that, but I do need to ungroup that, get rid of the top one, and get rid of that bottom one. We're going to go back, deselect everything. You do have to scroll down each time and make sure you hold down Shift for each one of these so you can keep all of these selected while deselecting. We're just going to group that. Now I'm going to go down one more layer and I'm just duplicating that. So you can see this really isn't too difficult. It looks like a whole lot of rhinestones to put in there. But I'm able to kind of reuse different lines. And if they don't match up perfectly, like right here, I'm probably going to move a couple of those out. Then you just do that when you ungroup it. So a whole lot easier than just adding in a whole bunch of circles. Alright, so I've continued to add those until this area is all filled in. I decided not to add one more. I decided to make this a little thinner, and of course it's not going to matter. Like I said, this design is completely going away. You're only going to be left with the rhinestones, so you don't have to follow it completely. You're just using this as a guide. So I'm going to go ahead and select all of these, and I'm going to group these. I might actually just bring it out just a little bit. And now I'm going to duplicate this, and I'm going to go over here to flip, and we're going to flip that horizontal, and we're just going to add it right here on this side. And I want to make sure they're the same height, so I'm going to select both of those. We're going to go to align, and we're going to go ahead and center those vertically. That way we know they're at the same height. And I might just bring this one in one more to match the other one. Okay, so that didn't take that long, and I already have a big section of my football done. Okay, so next I'm going to go ahead and stick with this same color and go ahead and work on the lines. All right, so I have all of these filled in, but I want to go ahead and make sure they're all distributed. So I'm just going to click on all these circles, hold down Shift while I'm doing this. So you will have to let go of Shift while you scroll down, but make sure you put Shift back down as you click, because if you don't, you'll have to start over by selecting all of these. I'm just going to go to Align, and we are distributing these horizontally. So that's just going to space those evenly. And again, if you see any that look a little in the wrong place, like I might bring this one down a little bit, click there. You know, you can kind of make some adjustments. So I try to, duplicate as much as I can because it just really helps make this go so much quicker. All right, so we already have all of the clear rhinestones done. So that was pretty quick and easy. I am going to go through and I'm going to group them. I'll leave those two separate. I'm going to group all of these together. All right, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to repeat those same steps for the football, except I'm going to do things a little bit different. Instead of going in lines, I'm going to actually go around here because I really want a smooth side finish, and then I'm going to fill it in. Because if you go in lines, as you get right here where it's really rounded, it's just not going to be a smooth side. So I really want the smooth side. But then for this top and bottom, I'm going to do the same thing where I line it up here and I keep duplicating and adding and filling it in. So I'm not going to make you watch all of that. All right, so for the brown, so far I've just gone around the outside and kind of curved it in here. And that's just because I want to make sure I have that smooth outside. So now I'm just going to sit and I'm just going to fill these in. So I'm just continuing to add new layers of these circles. And now this may not fill in perfectly. Like right there, I'm going to have a little bit of a spot. But this is going to be normal with a lot of the designs that you're doing. You're not going to be able to have like a perfectly filled in. You just want to make sure, it's as filled in as it can be. So I'm just kind of adding these and placing them to fill this in, adding as many as I can, as close as I can. All right, so I sat here and I just filled these in the best that I could. They're not perfect, but it's filled in pretty good. At any point, you can just scroll down here and hide this football layer, just so you can kind of see how your design is going. So when I have all those rhinestones like that, I think it looks really good. It looks pretty symmetrical. So I'm going to go ahead and select all of these. And I'm going to scroll down and just deselect any of the layers that I don't want so that I can go ahead and group those together. And then I'm just going to duplicate that, and we're going to flip it just like we did before, flipping it horizontally, adding it over here, and I'm going to go ahead and click on both of these. That way I can align those center vertically to make sure they're the same height. I feel like I can go up a little bit, brought it down when I centered it, and this one can go in a little bit. So I'm lining it right up with those other rhinestones. I'm forgetting that there's a little bit of white there because we want them right next to each other. And so now I'm just going to finish this. I'm just going to create a line right here for the football, and I'm going to keep bringing it down, adding and subtracting as needed. All right, so I finished adding all my rhinestones, and once I finished adding all of those, what I did is I just grouped my whites together and then I grouped my browns together. You want to go ahead and group them by colors, but make sure you leave your colors separate. And this football is no longer needed. We were just using this as a guide, so you can delete this or hide it. And so as you get rid of that, you can see exactly how your design is going to look, and you can see if you want to make any tweaks before we go to the next step. So before we can cut this, you need to go ahead and add a rectangle. So we're going to our shapes. We're going to grab this square, and I mean, you may need a square shape, but for me, a rectangle is going to work better. Let's close that back. So I'm just going to take off those proportions, and I'm just going to make this about the size of the football, a little bit bigger, but make sure that it covers it. And we're actually going to need 2 of these. So I'm going to duplicate that and just bring it around. And I'm going to go ahead and separate the colors. So we're going to start right here. And I'm going to go ahead and send this to the back. And make sure all of your rhinestones are within like this rectangle or square. And then you're just going to select both of those and go ahead and attach those together. All right, and we're going to do the same thing right here with the other color. Let's go ahead and send this to the back. And just kind of maneuver this somewhere in there. And you can even make it a little bit smaller. It doesn't need to be quite that big. It's a little smaller than the other one. And then go ahead and select both of those and attach. Now, although we're doing two different colors, it really doesn't matter if you do two different colors on here, because right now we're just cutting our rhinestone flock and it's going to be the same for both of these. So I'm just going to leave them both this color. And then we can go back and we're going to go ahead and add our game day back. But I do want to change the color of this because this is cutting on adhesive vinyl, or not adhesive, sorry, heat transfer vinyl. We're just using regular heat transfer vinyl. So I do need that a separate color because they are going to cut on different materials. And we're going to go ahead and cut this out, and I'm going to show you how to assemble everything. So when you're ready to cut, just go ahead and click on Make. And then make sure that you connect your Cricut. And we're also just going to select our regular mat for this. And so right now I have two different mats. So I have both of my rhinestone templates on this mat, and that's okay even though they're different colors, because I am cutting both of these on that flocked rhinestone material, so it can be cut together. And then this one right here I'm cutting with my heat transfer vinyl. So I'm showing you how to do a mixture of rhinestones and vinyl together. So I'm going to mirror this one and I'm going to cut it, you know, on my normal heat transfer settings. But we're going to go back up to the first mat. So for the rhinestone template, you don't need to make any adjustments, no need to mirror or anything. So go ahead and continue. And so for the material, some people prefer different settings. The settings that I found to work the best for me is the heavy cardstock. So that's right here, the 100 pound. This always cuts all the way through every time, so I just stick with this one, and I do leave it on the default pressure. All right, so when you're ready to prepare your mat, go ahead and cut out the amount of the rhinestone flock that you need. And then I like to go ahead and peel mine off before cutting, because I think this makes it way easier to weed out those little dots that you don't need. So I'm just gonna go ahead and place this on here. This helps keep it stuck down as well, so you don't have to worry about it sliding while it cuts. So I do recommend doing it this way. And just go ahead and place that down. So before cutting, I highly recommend making sure you have a new blade in here. And I am using a premium fine point blade, and that's gonna work the best. If you don't have a new blade, then make sure that you at least clean it off, and you can do that just by like pushing this into some tin foil. And that's gonna help clean any little debris off of your blade, and that's gonna really help with cutting these little intricate circles. So now you're just gonna load your mat, and then let your Cricut cut everything out for you. Okay, so once it's done cutting, it's gonna look a little bit of a mess like this. A lot of these probably came off a little bit, but we're gonna easily clean that up with a lint roller. So there's different ways that you can remove these. You can also use like transfer tape, peel them off yourself, but I just really think the lint roller works the best, and it's gentle, so it's not gonna rip any of your little rhinestone holes. You'll probably have to clean it off a few times though. And the lint roller is also great for cleaning these little pieces if they get stuck on your table or workspace, or even on your hands. So I'm just gonna continue to roll this until I have all these little pieces. Now there are a few that may just not want to come up with a lint roller, and that's fine because they should come up when we peel this off and weed it. But by doing this, this is going to give you so much less of a cleanup on your mat as well. Alright, so I've removed everything that wants to come up the lint roller. So now I'm just going to go around and weed this some more. Just going to remove this outside layer. And I'm just going to peel this off. And as I peel it off, you want to try to help those few little circles that got stuck on there kind of come off. You might have to push it down with your finger. It looks like for me, for this piece, there's only 2. So I don't have a lot that I need to try to get out of here. We're just going to push that down to get that out of here. And I'm just going to work with one piece at a time, so I'm going to come back to this one in just a minute. So you can either grab, like, this is the piece that this was on originally, so you can place this back on here, but if you see, mine rolls up a lot and it just makes it difficult to work with. So you can either grab like a long sheet of parchment paper, but I really like to use like a little baking sheet because now my rhinestones won't fall out from the little area. So I'm just going to stick this on here, and it's going to come off easily, so your baking sheet is not going to be ruined. And I'm going to place the other one here later, so that's why I've got this up top. Okay. So this template right here, this is the one that I'm using, like the white color. So for that, I'm actually using these crystal, and these are like the AB stones. And again, they're also the size 10, just like the brown's going to be. So I'm just going to open that up. And we're just going to pour a good bit on here. You want to pour more than you need. You want to have some excess because that's going to make it easier to spread them. So my rhinestone paper came with this little spreader. And I'm going to be honest, I'm not a fan of this spreader. If you kind of see, it does not get them in there easily. And sometimes it gets them in there upside down, if you can see that. So I actually prefer to use like a little brush. So I just picked this up from Home Depot. It's just like a little trimmer that you use. Just like a little soft fuzzy brush. If you don't have like a Home Depot or a Lowe's near you, I'll leave a link to where you can pick one of these up on Amazon, because this works so much better. Like, you just kind of go in circles and just kind of rub those in there. And if you notice, when they get in there, they're all facing up. I don't know why this does it and the other one doesn't, but man, it makes it so much easier using the brush. So just continue to go around, and you're going to brush away ones you don't need. And let's just, there's a few that, there's still some openings, so we're just going to kind of brush in there. Brushing away ones we don't need. It is important to make sure that all the rhinestones are facing up. You don't want the backs facing up. So just double check that before you transfer this over. And I'm just going to take this plastic off. And be really careful with this part because once it touches those rhinestones, it's going to take them. So you got one chance to get this. So just kind of bring it as close as you can on top and just kind of plop it down. And we're just going to press. We want to make sure each of those rhinestones gets pressed to it in the spot that they're in. You can even kind of use your scraper once they're more attached to help you out. Don't want to use the scraper at first because you may spread some around, but once you feel like they're all attached, you can use it. And now we're just gonna peel this off, and all of those rhinestones should come up with you. If they don't, press it back down. So just do this very slowly, making sure they all come up. And there we go. We've got this piece ready to transfer onto our shirt. But we need to get the other football part. So I'm just gonna stick this back on here just for right now. This side really doesn't matter, whichever side I can get this to down. Just gently. It doesn't stick too well to this, so those shouldn't come off. As you can see, if I can get it, they'll easily peel right back off. But that's just because I don't want anything getting stuck to it, so I'm just going to set that aside. And I'm going to go ahead and clean up these rhinestones before I add on my other template. Alright, so I also cut out my heat transfer vinyl because remember we're layering the design on top of this. And I'm ready to go ahead and press everything. And so once that's folded in half, I'm just going to take my heat press and I'm just going to give it a little crease down that middle. And that's going to give me my guide for the placement of my vinyl. So And so now I'm going to take my heat transfer vinyl, and I'm actually going to fold it in half right down the middle. I'm going to line this up to the edge, and I'm going to create a crease right down the middle. And I'm going to use that crease right on top of that crease and just place it as far down as you want. And so that's going to help make sure that is lined up and centered. I'm going to slide this a little more. And I'm just going to press this just like I would pressing any type of regular vinyl on a cotton shirt with a 315 temperature. So I'm not doing anything special here. I'm doing exactly like you would making a normal shirt. I'm now ready to add my rhinestones. So I'm going to start with the brown football template first, and I'm just going to place this kind of in the middle. It's kind of how I envisioned it. And put that in place and press that down. And since we are ironing on top of, other vinyl, I'm going to go ahead and place this on top. And then we're just going to add our heat press and go ahead and press this. And I'm going to use just a medium pressure. So if you notice, the temperature is 305 and I'm only pressing for 15 seconds. Now this may vary just depending on which stones you're using, but for the stones that I'm using, that's all that you need for these is 315 or 305 for 15 seconds. And just give it a little bit of pressure when you press down. Okay. And these can come right off. You don't have to wait. So we're just going to peel that. And look how beautiful this is already looking. Oh my goodness. A little bit in love already. Now I'm just going to line up the other color in place. We're just going to line that up before I press this down. So like if you don't want to see the letters behind it, you could use the slice tool to slice those out around that football. I actually meant to do that and I totally forgot to. And also if you don't want to see the shirt color behind the rhinestones, you can also cut that football out in like vinyl in the brown color and the cream color. And then you can put the rhinestones on top of that if you want that flush finish on the background. So there's a lot of things that you can do. Oh, sorry, I need to. So there's a lot of things that you can do, to make this look a little bit different, to customize it how you like it. Let's just go ahead and get this started and give it just a little bit of pressure here. And we're just going to slowly peel that away. And after you peel it off, you're done. So you've got this gorgeous little rhinestone football, and I'm really loving this. I had wished I had sliced these out, but lesson learned for next time. But make sure you stay tuned because I'm going to be showing you guys some more rhinestone tricks that you're really going to want to know at the end of this video. All right, so really quickly, I want to show you guys a quick hack. So say you purchased a rhinestone template or you designed one, but you realize that you want to use a different size rhinestone for it. I'm going to show you a quick way that you can make that change without having to redo everything we did. So we're going to go ahead and click on this right here, and we need to go ahead and detach this. And then we're going to delete this rectangle. Nope, not the design, the rectangle. And let's go ahead and do the same thing here. We're going to go ahead and detach that. And then we can go ahead and delete that. I'm going to go ahead and change this back a different color just so that you guys can kind of see the difference. Okay, so the first thing we're going to need to do is, I would recommend going ahead and duplicating this before you do this. That way you have a version that you don't have to weld. I've already got it saved before doing this, so I'm not going to duplicate it, but I do recommend either having it saved or duplicate it, because once you weld it, you are not going to be able to make changes to all the little individual circles. So we're going to go right here to combined and weld. And then from there, we're going to go ahead and click on this and go to contour. Okay, so once the contour opens, go ahead and click on hide all contours. And again, just be patient with it because this is a lot of dots. It's a lot for this program to process. And you're going to notice one of them stays, that doesn't get checked. Go ahead, that's good, leave that, and go ahead and click the X. And now right here, we're going to change the size. So say I wanted to use a bigger stone. So I'm just going to change that to the size I need it for the stone. And now go back to contour. So once that opens up, you're just going to click on Show All Contours. Go ahead and let all of those select and then close that out. As you can see, they all change to that rhinestone size. So we're going to have to do the same thing here to make this fit in there. So make sure you duplicate this layer first if you want to keep a version that's not welded together. So let's go ahead and weld that. And then click on it, click Contour, and just give it a minute to open. We're going to go ahead and hit Hide All Contours, close that out, change that size to that same size that we just made the other ones for the rhinestone, and go ahead and click on that, go back to Contour, and we're just going to do Show All Contours. And that'll fit perfectly right in there. So that's a much easier way to resize these than having to make all these circles again. However, it did make the design much larger. So if you notice, this is larger than it was before. So just make sure it still fits and that it's not going to be too big for like your rhinestone flock if you go too big with the rhinestones. But again, remember, you cannot resize this. Those circles need to stay that size or it's not going to work. So just remember not to resize this. And guys, if you have any questions on making these templates, on resizing them, or even using any of the rhinestone flock or adhering them, feel free to ask those in the comments and I will answer them there for you guys. And thank you guys so much for being here and watching this. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe so that you can see more great videos that I have coming up. And thank you guys again. Bye.